certainly a particular political point of view and they lean toward one side of the spectrum than the other, the parties quickly try to, or one of the parties will quickly try to absorb them. Many people who are not part of the movement will try to understand them through the partisan lens. And we have in the book a lot on the aftermath of 9/11, where initially there is this surge of bipartisan support to respond and bipartisan sentiment, but quickly people from from the two parties saw a lot of the basic problems like airline security in a very different way. And sometimes that's healthy. I mean, there are genuine divisions over policy that the fault lines make sure that these are hashed out and that we don't rush to a bad consensus, and that can be good. But there are times on an issue like sexual harassment or racial justice where that kind of knee-jerk tendency to try to ask what party do they support as opposed to the importance of the issue, that's a mistake, and it's one of the kind of bad elements of our current era of dealing with public questions.
Do you suppose that on an individual level, when I'm sitting and I'm watching the news, I suppose it matters what it is precisely that I'm watching or where I'm watching it on, is there any good set of steps that you would recommend to for someone to take, the average media imbiber, so to speak? How do we stop ourselves from careening off that partisan clip? Is there some sort of mental exercise that we can, I don't know whether it's count to 10 before we put it in a Democratic or Republican camp, but is there advice that you can give to the listener as to how to try and step back from that abyss?
Well, I think there are a couple steps, and some you've already circled around. One is to make sure you're not just, reading news from a source that you know is going to already agree with you, right, and tell you what you want to hear. A lot of the important role of news is to tell us things we don't quite want to hear. And so if you're a liberal, checking out some conservative sites. If you're a conservative, do the same and check out for liberals, because too often I think partisans hear the other side's view presented not by the other side, but through someone on their own side who's spinning it in the worst possible way, right? So let the other side speak for itself, and then you can judge it, and you'll likely disagree, but at least you'll hear them on their own terms. I think would be part of it. Another thing I think to do, especially as important on social media, is to check everything. We often you see someone come up on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, and I'm going to spread this on, and you become. No one thinks that they're the spreader of fake news, but we all have a role in it, whether we just don't realize it. So really verify what is going on there before you send some other outrage out there into the universe.
That's Kevin Kruse. We've been speaking with him and Julian Zelizer. Julian, a political analyst with CNN and a Princeton historian, as is Kevin Kruse. Their book is Fault Lines, A History of the United States Since 1974. Hopefully you can read it, find a sense of context for the rather dreadful situation that we're in right now, and some answers as well before we become further divided and bifurcated as a nation. Julian, Kevin, thanks so much for being with us today on Now It's the News.
Thanks for having us.